Good morning, guys, and welcome back to the channel. We're in the kitchen today to make an absolute all-time favorite, cheesecake. It's one of those things, it's always a cool, refreshing dessert. It's rich, it's fun to share with your friends, and it's really hard to buy out in the stores and get like a high-quality cheesecake. So luckily, we have a very simple, straightforward, easy-to-follow recipe that you can very easily achieve at home. So here we go. Alright guys, so on the counter today, let's start with the crust. We have 1/3 of a cup of butter melted. It's about 75 grams. We have 1 3/4 cups of graham cracker, 1 cup of granulated white sugar, and I went ahead and threw in about a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon there. And these things are going to make up the crust. We're going into a 9-inch nonstick springform pan. And I'm gonna bake it on a tray because I've never used this pan and I'm not sure if it leaks or not. So just to make sure that we don't end up in a bad situation, making the oven a giant mess, we're just gonna go ahead and put it into a pan. A lot of times in the States I would bake it in a water bath, but judging by looking at this pan and feeling of it, I feel like it's gonna leak at least a little bit. So I don't want any water to get into the cheesecake itself. To make up the filling for the cheesecake, we have 3 8-ounce packages or 1.5 pounds of Philadelphia cream cheese. We're going to add into that 1 cup granulated sugar, followed by 8 ounces of sour cream. We have 3 eggs here, and if you notice the off color, I just threw the teaspoon of vanilla extract in there with it. And today I'm going to add the zest of 2 lemons. This is completely optional. I recommend at least a little bit of lemon, but this is probably more than you want. I actually want my cheesecake to taste a little bit like lemon itself. So we're going to go a little heavy on the lemon. So like I said, maybe you want zest of 1 lemon in yours. We're going to go with 2. So here we go. Let's start with the crust. So to get going, I'm just going to make a little room here. I'm going to take the bowl that has, as I mentioned, the sugar, cinnamon, and graham crackers, and I'm just going to mix those together until smooth. And then I'm just going to pour the butter right into it. And we're going to mix it together. Grab the spatula here, rake down the rest of this butter. You have to get a pretty good balance whenever you are making the crust of the cheesecake because you want it to be wet enough to pack together, but you don't want it to actually be wet. You want it to just kind of have that wet, sandy feel to it at first. And if you see here, if you grab a hold of it and squeeze, see how it begins to pack, but it's also kind of brittle and easy to break apart. So that's what we're going for here. And now, we're just going to go straight into the pan. And so I'm just going to spread it out. And then I'm going to turn my hand over and pack it down with the back of my fingers. And the reason I do that is just so that we get a nice even packed crust, because you don't want a crumbly crust whenever you go to move like the piece of the cheesecake or whenever you go to slice it. You want to make sure that you end up with actual like mobile crust. You don't want it falling apart. Hey guys, so here we have our crust, and we're just going to go straight into the oven. It's at 350 degrees, and while the crust is in the oven for the next 10 minutes, we're going to go ahead and start getting the batter together on the cheesecake. Keep in mind you don't have to do this because you're going to need to let the crust cool a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and get started. This cream cheese has been softening for about 2 hours. So it's nice and warm, softened, and we're going to go ahead and add in the 1 cup of granulated sugar. I'm going to go ahead and add in the lemon zest. I can feel the sugar starting to dissolve into the cream cheese. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to rake down the sides, make sure we get a nice even mixture, get all parts incorporated well, and we're going to keep going. Now that those things are incorporated quite well, I'm going to go ahead and put in all of the sour cream. And the sour cream is also up to room temperature. The reason we do these things is so that it all goes in together smooth. Cream cheese is really hard to beat, especially with a handheld mixer like this. It's really hard to beat if it's firm. So we want it to be nice and soft, and we don't want the sour cream. We don't want the sour cream to cool it down. So that's why the sour cream's nice and warm as well. We're mixed pretty well here, and even if we're not perfectly mixed, the main thing is that the cream cheese is smooth, because we're going to continue mixing here in a few minutes whenever we go to add the eggs. Alright, it's been about 6 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and reach into the oven here and grab the cheesecake crust. As you can see, it's kind of starting to take a little bit of color, but not much. You don't want to toast it all the way out, because we are going to bake it for another hour. Alright guys, so coming back over to the cheesecake batter. The crust is cooling down right now, so we might as well go ahead and finish off the cheesecake batter. We have everything in except the egg and the extract. We're just going to add those in at the very end here. We're going to add them one at a time while we're mixing. Okay. Alright guys, now that the crust is cooled down most of the way, we are going to go ahead and add the batter in. Usually I just kind of try to put it all around nice and even, but I try to stay off the edges of the pan, because you don't want any stuck up on the sides any further than the batter goes, because it will burn while it bakes. So hopefully if your batter is warm enough, it'll almost level itself all the way out. But what we're going to do is we're just going to rake the bowl down. And then we're just going to smooth it the rest of the way out with the spatula. As you see, if you just kind of wiggle back and forth, it'll kind of flow out and follow its own patterns. So now we're going to go into the top rack of the oven, because we want to stay away from the heat as much as possible. And we're still at 350 degrees. We're going to give it some time. Alright guys, so it's been about an hour and 20 minutes or so. And if we look in here, if we shake the cheesecake, you see how it jiggles in the middle, but the outsides are starting to set. So it's starting to take just a touch of color, but not too much. And we are going to pull it out and let it start cooling. We're going to let it cool at room temperature for a while before we put it in the refrigerator. And if you'll notice, it's going to sink just a little bit. So we'll take a look here in a while. So after letting it cool on the counter for about an hour and then placing it in the refrigerator for another 8, I went ahead and popped off the springform pan, and as you can see, the sides are in pretty good shape. And then I went ahead and added a guava glaze on top of my cheesecake. So comment below and let me know what you decide to put with your cheesecake. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.